Right. So we got Profit Zombies here, the brains behind it, Foster and Andrew. Thanks for joining us today. We just want to do a spotlight on you guys because we love you. We appreciate you. We love your service that you provide for clients and that you've provided for us in the past. So we just want to do a little spotlight and let people kind of get to know who you are and what you love, what you do. So either of you feel free to take it away. Just tell us a little bit about, how you got started with Profit Zombies and just with your business.
Well, I'll go ahead and take the lead here, and then I'll let Foster kind of transition to what he wants to add to it. But I mean, I got started way back when I'm 29 now. When I was 15 is kind of when I started everything. And honestly, it all came obviously because every person pretty much in my family except for myself is a chiropractor. So I got into that natural health space pretty early on. And then just being, I guess, tech inclined just kind of helped me along the way. But really just trying to make it so that people that we worked with were, I guess, maybe a little bit more accessible, to the people that wanted to come into their business, obviously. And started off with websites, built like 400 or 500 websites over the course of like a year or two. Built our own email marketing platform before it was like easy to like white label a different service. So it was actually our own platform. And then kind of got hired by a couple of chiropractic colleges, actually, Logan being one of them. And then getting hired by a couple other colleges to sell other degrees. And I figured, okay, well, if we're good enough to run ads for that, we could probably run some ads for some other stuff too. So we ended up kind of transitioning everything over to more of like a Facebook ads agency. I'd say, I don't know, maybe like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And then that's kind of where Foster stepped in. So I'm going to kind of pass the torch to Foster here on that really quick.
It was pretty interesting, my beginnings, because I got into this when I was just hitting 21 years old. And, I don't think any 21-year-old says, I know what I'm going to do. And the way I met Andrew was pretty funny. He was the resident of one of the high-rise buildings I managed in downtown Tampa. And, I was wearing Brooks Brothers suit every day. Commute was down an elevator. It wasn't so bad. And I got to know Andrew one day, the first day of my employment. Andrew came down with a problem, and I guess I satisfied that problem pretty quickly. And after about 9 months of knowing him and being in that high-rise, I realized I hit my glass ceiling, asked Andrew for a job, and he told me he was waiting for me to ask, but he wasn't going to give me anything. And, here I am just over 5 years later. I hit my 5 years early September, essentially. And boy, I'm happy the way it worked out. It's been a pretty fantastic experience. And we get to touch hundreds and hundreds of offices every single month. We represent probably more ad spend than any other advertising agency in our niches by far, probably by almost times 10. And even still today, we're revolutionizing. I thought we were the best last year. Now we do a really good job making our old selves look bad, and we're gonna do the same thing next year.
That's awesome.
I love that. I remember meeting Andrew back in 2018 when opened the first clinic. And I was like, who is this guy? I was like totally intrigued by you. I think you were like 22 or 23 at the time, talking about, I don't know, remember, was it Lamborghinis or Ferraris or something like that?
Ferraris, yeah. And
I was like, oh boy, let's give this guy a shake. And you have done nothing but supersede any expectations or desires that I had in practices. And I know I've referred a ton of people to you and always taking care of everybody. So it's really important in the spotlight is like, who's the people behind the scenes, knowing their heart. But these guys really put their money where their mouth is. They do perform and have performed very, very well for my 3 clinics, and then for clinics of people that I've referred to you guys. So I really, really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Did you have another question? Because I wanted to ask is like, what's been for me just recently, this challenge that we had, and you guys came in and saved the day. But what are some of the challenges that you're seeing right now with advertising, social media advertising, and how are you helping others to overcome that?
So like we'll talk about like advertising stuff, but just to touch on your thing for a second. So like, obviously your account was locked beyond all belief, right? So we used to, way back in the day, we don't charge money for it anymore, but we used to have a program where we had a really high success rate. Like almost everyone that came to us that had a locked profile, whether they've been shut down by another company or, you know, maybe they tried to do it on their own, something got locked, right? Or maybe it was an old profile that was transferred over to an old company that was doing marketing back when that was the correct way to do it. But then that marketing company was like one guy with a laptop, and he no longer does that, and we no longer have his cell phone number, right? And so it was kind of locked away in a castle, so to speak.
We're talking Facebook jail, by the way, for our listeners.
Yeah, Facebook jail. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is like everybody I know has had that happen to them at one point. We used to sell it for $5,000, and it's kind of turned into like this crazy weird skill set where we have like a really high success rate in getting people's profiles back. And it's very quick. You just kind of have to obviously know what you're looking at, right? So what's funny is like, that's one piece of the puzzle, because a lot of people's profiles are not set up the correct way, and this will like transition into actual ad problems. But by having the correct account structure, you're not able to determine, and this is actually the biggest problem right now, which of your, let's say you have 10 advertisements running, which of those 10 advertisements is actually producing a result. So let's say you have 10 ads and you get 10 new patients, or whatever you would want to quantify it as. We'll say new patients, right? Facebook might only show 3, or they might show 7, or they might show 5, or they might show 13 on the actual portal, like in their ads manager. And to an office, this doesn't really mean a ton, other than that the number of leads that are reported is different than what lands in your system.
Mm-hmm.
So Facebook gives you a number, and unless you're paying really close attention, you know, if your cost to get a new lead is actually 50% of what you say it is, or what they say it is online, you're not making the accurate or the right decision based upon the information that you have. So the biggest thing for us at this moment is still data discrepancy. So essentially being able to identify where we're overspending on certain things, and then being able to put in like countermeasures in order to counteract that handicap. And this is an everyone thing. The problem is most marketing companies, and this is how it all chains back together, most marketing companies, when they run Facebook ads and social ads, they don't actually set up your account the right way. They also aren't able to tweak, like everybody's heard the phrase, you know, like, oh, these leads don't have money, right? Or these leads are not a quality lead. Obviously, a quality lead is derived from more than just financial perspective, right? But from just the finance side, 99% of marketing companies, at least that we cross paths with, are not setting things up the correct way, even if they've been through 5, you know, an office like, you know, like we have a guy that owns 3 office locations, and he's probably been through, I don't know, 5, 10 marketing companies. Not one company this entire time, hundreds of thousands of dollars spent, has ever actually set it up where you can determine which ads are producing which results. Well, so they're literally guessing, and companies will go and say that they're able to make a tweak, or, oh, the leads are low quality. Okay, I'll pass that info along. They aren't passing any info along.
Right.
Right. So it's a weird time right now, because a lot of people are saying they're doing something, but they're not. So maybe that would be it, I guess.
It's extremely expensive to do things the right way. I mean, Andrew, I don't know if we're allowed to expose this or not, but just to filter, host, and manage the data to Facebook, I mean, what's the range you're comfortable sharing that we spend with Amazon Web Services?
It's like above $25,000 a month.
It's
just to give you an idea, it's almost double that. But yeah, it's very expensive, and most marketing companies just don't have the budget to do that, because on the surface it appears no different. And this is the unfortunate reality for a lot of our clients that come to us. It appears no different to you as the client, so you can't tell if someone's doing it or not. So you end up getting more leads that don't remember who you are. They don't answer the phone. They aren't interested in what they submitted there. You know, like, you're not able to tailor anything related to quality, not just financial, but everything else as well. As like, what happens if you have a patient come in and they buy a full program. Let's say they sign up for a stem cell program for $20,000, right? We should be able to send that information back, and we should be able to find more people like them. The problem is no one sets it up to do that.
So
at least that I'm aware of.
So if I could, Andrew, to tie this point, because data is only so interesting to people outside of yourself. The difference between many companies is data. And that's derived from how long you've been working with, how many people you work with, ergo how much ad spend you get to represent, and the systems behind it, because data is the foundation of not just what brings a campaign's launch to being initially successful, but what keeps it alive for months on end to make sure your campaign doesn't go great for 3 months and then just die, essentially, which is something everyone's seen. I've had countless of those conversations. Yeah, we love those guys, but it just stopped working. And that's mainly because they don't filter, manage, have access to the level of data we do, and they could even be derived as a one-trick pony. Again, account setup, some other thing to touch on is transparency is a huge thing, and most companies are lacking it. My listeners here today, you guys will probably be able to resonate with this. Have you ever run ads with a company where they charge you all the ad spend up front, or they put your card into Facebook in a weird way, and they have to hold your hand to see what's running, who they're targeting, what's been spent? If they run the ads the right way using something, go figure, called the Facebook partnership feature, then you should be able to give the company access to certain assets, sequester them into your account, and you're able to see what's spent, who's being targeted, what's being run, without us, an advertising agency, having one, the opportunity to lie to you, or two, needing to hold your hand to share things. A lot of times with these archaic management styles of these companies, when you want to see what's been done, they send you over some canned report with their logo on it, not an actual Facebook report. And that begs a very interesting question. Is all my money really being spent, or have I gotten a satisfactory result, and are they just pocketing the rest? So there's a lot of other terms within that. Andrew, any other points on there? Otherwise, I have my own answer to a longstanding issue in the advertising world.
Oh, yeah. Go for it.
So I think this is probably one of the biggest testaments to how our companies works and how we developed, since my implementation, I'm not the result of this, I'm just a part of it as our companies progressed. You know, when I talk to someone about advertising for the first time ever, I say, tell me if this sounds familiar. You are charged a setup fee, possibly. You're charged a monthly management fee and ad spend, and then you're put onto a 3-month contract. You get plenty of leads, or maybe you have some struggle with the campaign, but eventually whatever leads you get, they're almost impossible to get a hold of. Those that get a hold of rarely schedule, rarely show, and even rarely purchase. And by the end of it, you have a bunch of names, numbers, and cell phones on the spreadsheet. And when you bring the problem of lead quality to the company, they gaslight you and say your problem is your process, our leads are fine. And they offer no solution other than pointing the finger. And you get feeling pretty frustrated. And 99% of people say, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if this is the right time to place this, but our solution is, and this is developing further and further in more depths of the industry, is to not charge a management fee, not charge a setup fee, not put you on a 3-month contract, but instead make your only cost ad spend. And, you know, we get leads that prepay. They show up 95% of the time, and we keep those prepayments for some programs. Makes your only cost ad spend, keeping the barrier to entry low, keeping the investment of time, money, and effort mutual. And because all advertising has ebbs and flows, ups and downs, it's a guaranteed patience and problems with marketing, you know, then we get to share in those ebbs and flows, and we can always be revered as honest. So I think that's the biggest issue, is the industry for decades, long before I was even in or out of high school, was okay with this structure originally because it's all that's ever existed. But us as market makers, not market takers, have done a lot to make a big change there, which, you know, me as the primary sales individual and director for the company has made my job very easy, you know.
No, I love that about you guys.
And our biggest time waster with clients, like, instead of talking about important stuff, like, especially when they are dealing with other companies, like, they're like, well, how do I get this company's leads to be like yours and like actually show up? And we're like, that's the only reason why we do it the way that we do it.
Got skin in the game.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
We had a big algorithm change in August. If any of y'all listening recognize that since August, things have been a little bit more difficult. It's more than Q4. It's more than summer. Facebook had a big algorithmic change. We had one of the biggest sought after, like a television show. It's the third opening season to the United States election. There's a lot of things going on. And if your company hasn't seen a bunch of elections, they haven't been through a dozen summers, a dozen of Q4s, then you might be looking at them like, what the hell's going on? And things are even tougher for us, but we have an answer to educate people so they don't feel so lost. You know, because the worst thing you can do when something was working, and maybe it slowed down because of typical annual, repeatable occurrences, is pull money out when times are bad, because Facebook will punish you later. You know, it's a very interesting thing, but a lot of people haven't seen these occurrences over and over again. You know.
Oh, but that's definitely what I'm hearing is Facebook's change, the algorithm's change. I'm like, I have no idea about that. That's why I send people in your direction. So
yeah.
What about you? What other questions did you have, Alyssa?
Yeah. So, because one thing we want to do too is like, how does Prophet Zombies help? But also, who are you guys to say, this is what we can do and this is why we love it. And I think it's kind of neat that, Andrew, you said, most people in my family are chiropractors. I decided not to be a chiropractor, but I'm helping them. So a lot of our clients are chiropractors as well. So what is it about that profession that you just love? Because I know we love it. So.
Well, I mean, I was adjusted like right when I was born, right? So like, I mean, I've grown up. I literally cleaned my dad's offices when I was a kid. My dad had 2 huge offices. It's just something I've always been a part of. Unfortunately for me, well, I guess fortunately, but unfortunately for me, I'm not that smart when it comes to biology. So I wanted to do stuff in the healthcare space because I am really passionate about helping people, especially with things like that are, like I understand like normal, like chiropractic, like is phenomenal. For example, I broke 3 ribs. And I on a bike ride that I went on, and my like lazy self, I'm not gonna go to a chiropractic office. I'm gonna go over to my parents' house 3 days a week. They live like 5 miles away, and I steal free adjustments all the time. So I mean, I literally everything. I mean, I've grown up going to trade shows with my dad. I was the pro booth setter upper when I was 8 years old. I would go to the lunch and learns. I fired one of my dad's staff members when I was 7 years old, like in a staff meeting because they broke. I don't remember what all the details were, but he came home one day, just talk like everybody kind of vents, right? He was like, this lady came in and she was like, whatever it was, certain type of behavior. And I was like, that makes sense. And he was like, and yeah, the thing that frustrated me is that whatever it was the staff member is a repeatable thing that this person had done just because I had heard about it, right? And I think the saying is that kids don't lie or they can't lie or something like that, right?
They give you the brutally honest truth.
Me being the brutally honest truth, I said, well, you should just fire her. And well, I got brought out of school on Friday, that next Friday, which is when my dad held his team meetings, Friday mornings. And after the team meeting, my dad pulled her off to the side and he said, Andrew has something to say to you, and I fired her. So I don't know. I mean,
That's funny.
I don't know if there's one thing that I like love about it. I guess growing up with it, I have so many things that I've heard, but like my ribs are one thing, like it's an unbearable amount of pain unless I get adjusted. And as soon as I do, it helps. I have stories about, I had a little Maltese that got adjusted by Dr. Gary Fiber. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but a doctor, a little Maltese, and she was like lying on the floor, like pretty much on her deathbed as a puppy, and got adjusted, jumped right up, started running around like crazy, and she was fine ever since then. Like literally on her deathbed, unable to move, wouldn't get up, anything. Into some, like I think she lived to be like 15. Which is insane. So I have like all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
There's definitely not just one thing.
And that's what I love about you guys too, is you're on mission, not for the dollar amount, but you're on mission because of what's behind the marketing and the advertising and all the stuff that you do, is because chiropractic transforms lives. How about you, Foster? Do you have a personal chiropractic story or why you love serving the profession?
So the thing I really love about serving the profession, mine was discovered much later in life, right? I was, raised very traditionally, and that was always visits to the MD, having a GP, and that was it until I had my very first adjustment after I got into Profit Zombies at the age of 21. And you hear all the things like, oh, once you get adjusted once, you have to get adjusted for all the myths, essentially, jargon.
Yeah.
But the thing I really struggled with early on in my life was sleep. And maybe that was stress, that was wanting to be a better person than I originally was. But as soon as I started getting regularly adjusted, and I'd done everything, by the way, I bought the $5,000 purple mattress. I have a BedJet air conditioning system. I have $600 worth of pillows and all that stuff. I've taken supplements and done protocols and exercise and stopped drinking caffeine before 3 p.m. in the day. And none of it worked until I started getting adjusted, which I think was more curvature to the circle of wellness that I needed. And that saved my mentality. But the thing I really love about the chiropractic industry and, the extended communities around holistic wellness is they maintain the same perspective that Andrew and I do, which resonates with what you were saying just before. Help enough people get what they want, and what you want will come naturally. And that's a teaching of Zig Ziglar that I've lived by for a long time. And it just come naturally, to the chiropractic industry. They get into this business to help people first, and the money comes, essentially.
Absolutely. That's awesome. I always love hearing what people's chiropractic stories are, because sometimes it's like the weirdest thing. Like, I started going when I was really little because I always got ear infections, and I always had this weird shooting pain that would come up my neck when I turned my head. And my mom started taking me when I was probably the same age that Andrew fired, his dad's chiropractor. So, but I always love hearing people's stories about that, and how it's always a God story that brings people together. Like, you guys were working in the same building. Natasha and I met because I locked myself out of her next door neighbor's house. Like,
no way.
Cool stuff. Yeah.
That's funny.
So yeah, do you guys have any like golden nuggets of things that you've learned over the years that you would share with a client, like rapid fire, one round of best advice that you could give somebody?
I know.
After you, Foster, go for it.
So this is going to be zero surprise to Andrew, and probably zero surprise to you as well, Natasha, because it's literally the second thing I do every day outside of sales and advertising, and that is packaging your services properly. Packaging, pricing, amalgamating things together in an attractive document is a rare skill set I've really honed in over the years. I've done it over 1,600 individual times now. And each one of those times is between 45 minutes and 4 hours of my life. And it's something we do for every single new client of ours, because all of our clients, I'm sure, and all of y'all listening now, you have the steakhouse location, the service, the price points for sure, especially if you're doing weight loss, contouring, neuropathy. All these cash-based health-focused services come at a cost that typically are not covered by insurance. If they are covered by insurance, you're probably asking God, how do I get out of it, essentially? And so since you have the steakhouse location, services, the price points, and the technology, most of y'all do not have the menu. A lot of the time what you're presenting to patients, if you have anything to present at all, looks like it was, I don't know, to put it in an abhorrent way, typed up by a monkey, in black Times New Roman 12-point font. It's just not pretty. But then you're asking for $3,000, $8,000, $1,500. And what you're presenting on the page alongside your expert verbiage, is not representative of those price points. So I've really honed in over a long time building different levels, the good, better, best, gold, platinum, diamond, whether it's pain, shockwave, neuropathy, decompression, chiropractic, weight loss, body contouring, anything. I feel that you need to have a package of services, because the old way, $60 an adjustment, come as you go. Oh, you had a car accident or a family member was sick, and you start getting out of that. Well, then they're gone forever, and you have no time to follow up with someone. Instead, sell them a cash package or get them financed.
Yeah.
Another big thing, normalize financing, adopt financing. What are most people's fear? Financing is two things. One, I don't want to put people into debt. That's not your fault, nor your job, nor your problem, essentially. Get them financed, get them committed, and find a way to make them commit. And if it's a cash package sale, then commit them that way. But when you finance them, factor the cost of financing into the package and give them cash savings when they prepay. You need to take yourself out of that mindset. And again, the other concern, cost of financing will be taken out of you because you're going to forward that onto the patient, and they'll split it up over 12 to 24 months or so. It's a lot easier to package and finance patients because you get your money now, and then you can get them on maintenance programs after the fact, rather than hoping to get people to piecemeal their health through visit by visit payments. It's a very tough way to do business and makes things very hard to predict, essentially. So that would be my 1-2 part long-winded, not short answer.
Oh, that's it? Oh boy.
We love that though, is because, we say it's the MSS. If you don't got the MSS, you're going to miss it, which is the marketing, the sales, and the system. So what you're saying is like having good systems, especially when you're presenting on the sales part of that. So that's something outside the box that you don't hear from typically from marketing companies typically. So
yeah.
How about you, Andrew?
Mine is literally exactly 100% understanding that your business, I don't know if anybody who's listening will have read my bio, but if you go read my bio, it is all about understanding where you're at and just being brutally honest with yourself, right? I think a lot of the time, I think everybody knows someone who does something. I think in the marketing world, especially from my team's end, there are lots of people that like say that they do very well with marketing, like from a career standpoint. And it's a very similar thing with chiropractors that we see too, and different types of like little med spas and stuff like that too. Everyone says they're doing something really, really, really well. And everybody knows somebody who knocked it out of the park. They killed it, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, typically it's not the system behind that allowed for massive amounts of throughput. It very rarely is the thing that's getting the credit. It's typically the guy, well, he's just really good at sales. Well, I promise you, top to bottom, everything that happens within your office, or even from a marketing side, as you draw people in, it's calculated. And a lot of people just kind of fly by the seat of their pants. So like, my thing is, and once again, this is kind of an abnormal position, I think, for my team, but I mean, it's very common for us, but like abnormal for most marketing people to kind of poke their nose into, but like actually having scripts and actually having a process and actually having a system. And how do you deploy that over a training? How do you audit that training? How do you need your ducks in a row, right? Half of our battle is literally, even when people pay, it's now, okay, well, how do we close the sale? And the problem is they don't even know how to close the sale, typically, if it's a staff member that's doing the sale rather than the doc, because they've never been in that position before. They didn't think they were ever going to make it this far. So if we have the system on the front end that can almost guarantee that they come in, and then we have the system on the back end to make sure they feel loved, cared for, acknowledged, the whole nine, whatever, you're able to help them with their concern, and you make it all about the patient rather than about you or what maybe your belief system is, and making it fit with what they're looking to achieve, you're going to see yourself go so much further. So system is my plain English, which is horrible because Natasha, you said that.
Well, Natasha's mind is probably going exactly where mine is. And I have a pretty interesting perception of it because when I first got into this, I mean, I've known Natasha for basically the entire duration of my career. And when I was first starting to understand and see everything as it was, meeting folks in little places like Sebring, Florida, Montrose, Colorado, and, all the other places, I was working with still dozens of accounts at the time. And, I see Natasha and her team when you were in office, and I was talking to Andrew, I go, I don't know if I can work with them. They're so systematized and they know what to be, and they don't do it like anybody else. They have their own script.
That's right.
It's like they don't need me. And Andrew's like, yeah, I'll do the work with most of them because they think at a much higher level. But again, that's the difference. What you were able to achieve for those locations in Colorado was otherworldly because you had packages, you had sales, you had systems, and you also gave yourself focus time to identify the good and the bad and make things repeatable. Well, just as Andrew said, most folks are just flying by the seat of their pants, hoping that a light switch flicks next week and they're all of a sudden better.
And by the way, in a good system, not to cut you off, Foster, but like in a good system, you should know what they're going to say before you even say your sentence, because it's the same. I mean, it's the same thing every time. Everybody says the same stuff, whether it's us selling, it's you guys selling, it's the office selling, it's a staff member selling, a patient talking back to you based upon a question that you ask them. They all say the same thing. It's all there's a reason they're in there with that specific problem, right? So if we don't have a system on the back end that supports it, what's the point?
Right.
So anyway, sorry, Paul.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times too is people want to put blame on certain areas, and it's like you got to look at the system as a whole, and it's a teamwork effort. You know, you're an extension of, you're not the source and the problem solver and all these things, but they put so much stock into, you guys are going to solve all of my problems. That's not true. You know, you can bring tons of people in, and if the systems and the sales are not there, then you're just throwing money out the window.
To go on a quick 30-second, 45-second piece here, like this is the entire system, right? I have no patience. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to hire a marketing company because we need to do marketing. I hire a marketing company, I get no leads. Maybe now you do get leads, right? Maybe you fix the no leads issue. Now you're getting leads, but now you need to learn how to follow up, because you never had to do that before, because before you had no leads. Now that you've learned how to follow up, now you're having people book. And when they book, they no-show. Why is that? Because you've never gotten people to book before, because you just learned how to do follow-up, because you didn't have a system. Then after they book, then they start no-showing. So how do you get people to book and show? Then you learn that system. Then all the way down the line is where my team kicks in, right? And let's say you've done none of that. Oh, the person's already paid, so they're going to show up 90-95% of the time. But then now we fixed all of the other problems. And then offices come back to us and they go, well, so how exactly do I treat patients again? You know, how exactly do I talk to them about this? And it's like, I just fixed 99% of the problems that you or any office would ever have. You're acting like you don't have a package built out to present. You're acting like you've never done this before, right? That's why you need your system. That's why you need your packages. That's why you need, you know, your entire, like, it's not just one piece of the puzzle, I guess. Sorry.
And in order to make that succinct, Andrew, there's 3 paths of success, or 3, I guess, barriers. You need leads, you need them to show, you need them to close. With our stuff, you get leads, they're going to show up. So we spend so much time with people on the closing process, you know?
Because we don't need to help people we don't need help getting leads. We can get leads. We don't need help getting them to show up, because they all pay. So of course they're going to show up. It just leaves you to actually figure out the one thing that you've never figured out, which is maybe, Natasha, why they come back to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Send them to the dojo.
Yeah, exactly.
Beautiful.
Exactly.
Send them to the dojo. That's awesome. Well,
yep, send them back to the dojo so they can practice their closing skills, because there's a difference between sales and closing, and a lot of them can do their sales pitch, but they need some help with the closing.
It's funny because I kind of goof around with Foster sometimes, and I talk to him and I'm like, listen, Foster can teach you how to hold a knife, but I can teach you how to stab somebody a couple times and like mess them up pretty bad. You know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between theory and execution of a system too,
right?
Which is really important to recognize.
You need both, because you need the theory to understand the execution, and if you're just executing, you have no idea what made the kill happen, basically.
Right. Well, and the other thing as well, which is like, it's so horrible to say it, but if you get sent to the dojo, right, to learn how to do everything, and then you take it back to your office, right, all these great systems and this great info, why are you trying to reinvent it? Every time they do something off script. Like every time that we get a system, they do it off script. It's like, you don't need to do it. We already got it figured out. All you need to do is deploy it. And that's the benefit of having somebody on your side that, it's not their first time being there, right?
You know, make it simple is not what you do or what you say. It's how you do it and how you say it that matters, which is why we do a lot of role playing with people. I'll tell it to them. I'll get it written to them. Next week we meet, I go, okay, pitch me. And the first sentence they change it, where I go, nope, restart.
And Natasha, the benefit that you have too, I think, with like what you guys offer to people is that, like the training and everything is great. Not to obviously downplay that, but a lot of your value in your relationship, I'm sure, also comes from the fact that sometimes people get in their own head, like they're in their own little bubble, like they only think that it's happening with them, when in reality, the problem that they're having is probably happening with almost every single person until they do X, Y, and Z. And your value that I think you guys bring, obviously the training is important, giving someone a system that they can follow is important, but also having that past experience to make somebody be aware of the fact that they're not alone in their journey. And you can rifle off 10 different examples of different people doing different things. It's like a false green flag that's actually a red flag, if that makes sense. But they wouldn't know it because they're only doing it on their own.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and people just get stuck in their own thing.
Their rut, like in it's like a motocross bike, they get stuck in those deep ruts.
Yep. Exactly.
So what other questions might y'all have for us?
Well, before we wrap it up, is just like, I want the audience to know, like, these areas are your jam. I know you guys killed it on our weight loss and you killed it on our neuropathy. So what are some of the main wheelhouses that you market for, so that our audience knows that?
Absolutely. Andrew, would you like to do it?
Decent. I'll take it away. A decent bit of things. Obviously, we don't touch on everything as far as service lines are concerned, but neuropathy, decomp, decompression. We have a lot of offices right now doing like what I call general joint pain campaigns. Some of these are offices that have technology like soft wave, stem wave, the shock wave, the sound wave, the acoustic wave therapy. Some of them have no-name devices. Some of them are doing lasers. Some of them are doing red light pain treatments. Red light body contouring is our biggest service line that we have by far. We do other body contouring too, but red light seems to be a really popular one. And that program's been around for
over 10
almost 8, 9, 10 years, somewhere around there, right? Like getting pretty close to about 10 years at this point. I would say it would be right about 10 years because I was 18 or 19 and I'm 29 now. So, but yeah, I mean that we have local and nationwide or statewide, or whatever area you decide to pick for weight loss campaigns as well. And there are a lot of people trying to also do remote weight loss. So we have a couple people that do remote weight loss with pretty good success. Foster, am I missing anything?
I think if I'm going to make the list really succinct, it's neuropathy, decompression, joint pain, shockwave, sound wave, acoustic wave, weight loss, body contouring, decompression, the performance programs that I hinted at earlier, y'all, because that's what most people are pretty interested in, because highly effective, not a lot of chasing leads, show over to 95%, and your only cost is ad spend. That's going to be your contouring, your red light campaigns, and your shockwave campaigns, your class 4 laser. We're slowly bringing that out to more niches, but the build out for a performance program like that takes about 6 months, which is why they're so slow going, but also why they're so effective.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
That's about it, y'all.
Yeah, well, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate your time today. I just love and appreciate you guys for who you are, your hearts, and the service that you have provided for me over the years. So
absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for having us on. We love working with you guys and talking with you guys too.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys.
Yeah,
Bye.
thank you.
Yeah.
See you guys.
Bye.